and thank you once again for tuning into Live with Andy. I'm your host, Andy DeBala. It's been a while since we got to meet up here on my main YouTube channel. I just got back from a nice long 2 week ban. But in the meantime, I created a new YouTube channel at Live with Andy DeBala, my name, backup channel. And I've actually been doing a little, so I've been taking my time that I had off and started creating some shorts here. And just some of the research I've been doing. Sometimes I talk on them, sometimes I don't. But make sure you go and check out some of these shorts on my backup channel. I think some of them are very important. I get into like this one right here. I get into
hardship, good example.
into Ralph Barrick and how he built the virus synthetically from scratch, the SARS-CoV-2 virus. I get into Klaus Schwab, the World Economic Forum. I got Capitol Insurrection videos. So make sure you go subscribe to my backup channel. I got 2 strikes on this channel right now. I'll be taken down pretty much in the next 5 videos. So make sure you go subscribe there, and you'll be able to follow along as we go here. So I'm doing a video today about my boy, my man, President Donald Trump. You know, I'm not a big Joe Biden fan. My people that are close to me, they know this to be true. I every time I see his face on the television, I just have this look of disgust, and I was like, "Oh, are you smelling something bad over here? Did someone pass some gas?" And it's like, no, it's just like that look of Joe Biden just makes this ugly face creep over me. But you guys all know I voted for Trump the past 2 elections, and some of the one thing that a lot of Trump, actual like hardcore Trump backers, one of the things I actually hate about him is the fact that he pushed for the Johnson and Johnson, the vaccine so much. Everyone's like, if you're one of us and you're not part of the deep state, Donald Trump, why are you pushing for vaccines? Why are you pushing for the jab for this virus? I know I didn't get the vaccine myself. I know a lot of my patriots around me, they didn't get the vaccine, and a lot of people that were, I guess, following Trump didn't. But I have some bad news for all my Trump backers out there. You wonder why, like, why did he push the vaccines so hard? And it is because of a relationship with this man, Mr. Woody Johnson. Now, I'm a big football fan. I actually did not know this myself. Some of you guys might know this stuff already. But you guys just bear with me for a moment. But I'm a big football fan. I know Woody Johnson as owner of the New York Jets. Jets, 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 Jets. I'm a Browns fan myself. We lost to the Jets in week 2 in heartbreaking fashion. But nevertheless, that's how I know old Woody here. But as you can see, just by reading this profile, I'm going to read a little bit of his profile, and you'll see some of the connections that we'll start making with Trump. So Robert Wood Johnson IV is an American businessman who is United States ambassador to the United Kingdom from 2017 to 2021. Now, he was appointed the United States ambassador. I didn't know you guys see those years there from 2017 to 2021 by Mr. Donald Trump. He is a great-grandson of Robert Wood Johnson I and a billionaire heir to the Johnson & Johnson pharmaceutical fortune. Now, if that's not a connection in itself that Donald Trump appointed the heir to the Johnson & Johnson throne as ambassador to United Kingdom, I don't know what is, but there's a couple more connections to be made. In 2000, he purchased the Jets. He has a brother, Christopher, and he has a sister also. He's a longtime Republican Party donor. Johnson was a supporter of Donald Trump's presidential campaigns. He He donated both the first time and the second time to Donald Trump and the Republican Party. He was actually the largest donor of all the NFL owners in general. He was appointed by Trump to the post of the U.S. ambassador to the UK. Britain's exit from EU and the relocation of the United States Embassy in London occurred during his tenure. They get into his early life and stuff, but he is also the owner of the Chelsea football team. That's in the UK, and he bought that from Roman Abramovich, which is the billionaire oligarch from Russia, and he was like forced to sell the team. And I mean, Woody Johnson happened to capitalize off of that and buy Chelsea FC. Now, one of the things that I also found interesting was, let's see if I can find it here real quick, is his wife. Here's a picture of Trump, Donald, Melania, Woody, and his wife, Suzanne Iqra. Now, Suzanne Iqra, I'm sure I'm not pronouncing her name correctly. In 2009, Johnson married Suzanne Urquhart Johnson, a former actress and equities managing director at Sandler O'Neill and Partners. They have 2 children. Suzanne's father immigrated from Ternopil, Ukraine after World War II. So Woody Johnson, after this Ukraine-Russian war, Abramovich has to sell the Chelsea FC team in the UK. Woody Johnson ends up purchasing that because of the sanctions that were put on Russia. So there's a weird little some sports conspiracy connections for you. But yeah, Woody Johnson's wife, her father and mother are from Ukraine. So they definitely have some connections as well when it comes to Ukraine-Russian crisis. But I'm not going to dig too deep into that at the moment, but just know that connection is there, as well as Donald Trump appointing Woody Johnson as the United States ambassador to the UK. So, if this is your first time watching my show, thank you for tuning in. I appreciate it. Give me a like, give me a share, spread the word, spread the news. I'm not a professional news anchor or anything. I have a speech impediment, but I am charmingly handsome, blonde-haired, blue-eyed. I work out, I eat healthy. So hopefully that overcomes some of my issues. So as you can tell here on the screen, we got Jets owner Woody Johnson leads NFL in recent federal campaign contributions. Like I said before, he was the leading NFL contributor to Trump's campaign. I'm a sports guy. That's kind of why I dig some of this. All right, so we can see here that Johnson & Johnson CEO Alex Gorski, he dined with Trump as the president promises substantial drug price cuts, and this was on August 8th, 2018. So before the pandemic happened, the Johnson & Johnson CEO had a nice, I'm sure it was a steak dinner. I'm sure it wasn't one of those like taco bowls that Trump had at the top of Trump Tower during his election. I'm sure it was a nice steak and potato dinner here with Alex Gorski. There's a lot of talk about some of the drug price cutting that Trump did and how that would affect the pharmaceutical companies at the time, and they were all worried about that. But Johnson & Johnson ended up fine. As you guys know, they were making more than enough money at the time to kind of cut into some of their profits. Now, I got a couple clips here that I'm going to show you guys as we go. Just some news clips of Alex Gorski and Trump and some of the things that were going on at the time. Johnson & Johnson. Now, this is a clip from NBC Today. I've actually been watching some NBC Today. There's Samantha Guthrie here, the real news journalist on NBC Morning. On the NBC Morning Show, she's going to interview Alex Gorski here. I hope the audio is working fine, but you're going to get a break from my voice, and I'm going to let this play here.
Is one of several companies that has developed a potential vaccine slated to be tested in clinical.
Now, keep in mind that Trump had it. He. Oh shoot! I forgot to set it up. Actually, okay. No, I am setting it up properly. I'm trying to decide how I want to display my information correctly, but here we go.
Clinical trials later this year. Alex Gorski is the chairman and CEO of Johnson & Johnson. Mr. Gorski, good morning. It's good to have you here.
Well, Savannah, thank you very much for having us on this morning.
Yes, we mentioned just one of them, but there are actually several companies that are in this kind of arms race to get a vaccine. Moderna is in clinical trials already. Inovio slated to.
Now, keep in mind that Trump, he had dinner with Gorski before this. He appointed Woody Johnson, the Johnson & Johnson owner, as the U.S.-UK ambassador, which I'm certain made profits for Johnson & Johnson at UK in the United Kingdom as well. I haven't done that research, but we get into that in a different show. But just keep all these connections in mind, and I'll after this, I'm going to show you how it paid off for Trump.
To start clinical trials next month. A German company, CureVac, also researching a vaccine. Tell me about Johnson & Johnson's candidate for a vaccine. Why is it so promising, and when might clinical trials start?
Sure, Savannah. First of all, just let me say how much we appreciate the important public service that you and your team are providing, keeping your viewers really educated and informed about this disease. And I know myself, just watching over the weekend, it can be pretty distressing when you're seeing what's happening with mothers and fathers and patients, and in some hospitals, particularly like in New York City. What I can also tell you is we're seeing incredible collaboration and good news stories as well taking place, whether it's between some of the biopharmaceutical companies collaborating together, as you just mentioned, trying to get these vaccines out, or other places. But look, today at Johnson & Johnson, we're really pleased to be able to announce that we have a vaccine candidate that, based upon the testing that we've done, and we've been doing a lot in this area, in areas like SARS, Ebola, as were mentioned earlier, that we've got a candidate that has a high degree of probability of being successful against the COVID-19 virus. Now, we also, and very important, is we've got the production capabilities to be able to ramp up production of this in a relatively short period of time so that it can become available. That's why we're entering
Operation Warp Speed
agreement with the government, where we're going to be investing more than $1 billion, accelerating the clinical development as well as the production. And we want to make sure the patients, certainly here in the United States, but around the world, can get access in a very affordable way. In fact, we're going to make sure that we're offering this at a not-for-profit basis here in the United States and around the globe.
Well, that is all really promising news. As you mentioned, you're working with BARDA, the Biomedical Advanced Research and Development Association.
You see that little smirk he made after, yeah, we're going to be sure we do this not for profit. It's like, oh, and then he just smiles as Guthrie looks on. It's like, sure, bud, sure. I'm going to show you that they did, in fact, make profit at the end of this. But Donald Trump makes some profit off of this deal as well. That's a little hint of what I'm going to showcase you after these videos.
Associates at the Department of Health and Human Services. So you mentioned a couple things there. I just want to drill down on it. How soon do you think, if the vaccine ultimately proves to be a successful one, how soon could it get to market? Because, most estimates are 12 to 18 months. Is that the timeline for you as well, if this turns out to be a successful vaccine?
Well, Savannah, we've got all hands on deck. And in fact, this is like a moonshot for us at Johnson & Johnson. What would usually take 5 to 7 years, we expect to be able to accomplish in 5 to 7 months. So to give you an idea, we're working right now on early tests that tend to be very predictive of how these vaccines are eventually going to work in humans. And we want to, first of all, make sure that they're safe, that the platform is safe, that it can be effective. We anticipate starting in humans in September. we could have something called interim results where we use, statistical methodology to look and see, do we have a high degree of success? We should have that by the end of the year, such that in an emergency situation, we could have vaccines ready in Q1 and Q2 of 2021. Now, it's also really important in these situations is that we ramp up production. So literally within the next few days and weeks, we're going to start ramping up production of these vaccines as well. And we should be able to have several 100 million doses available by the middle of next year. And our goal is to have 1 billion prepared by the end of 2021. So again,
it's so interesting because you're starting, sorry to interrupt, but I hope people really focus on this because it's interesting, and the companies who are doing this are taking a risk. You're basically producing the vaccine before you even know that it's effective in the hopes that this will be the one.
That's what we have to do in this case. We're going to do everything possible to make sure that we have a safe,
that's safe. Like they spoke about this a little bit beforehand. The news actually did at first. They questioned these guys, and then they kind of followed suit after the virus started actually coming about, and they started, and the Pfizer and the Moderna mRNA vaccines came. It was like, we need to change that wording completely and just be like, they're tested and they work, and they make it so it's not transmissible from human to human. They started pushing all that type of propaganda after the initial charge here.
Effective vaccine available in the kind of quantities that can really make a difference. And frankly, just like the heroes in the hospitals are working right now, the leaders in our laboratories are working 24/7 to do everything they can to accelerate this process.
Can I ask you one more question before I let you go about Tylenol?
Sure.
Obviously, it's a fever reducer. It's been harder and harder to find. I mean, I can't find it in my drugstore shelves right now. What is the company doing to...
All right, that's I'm not getting into Tylenol and stuff, but there is Alex Gorksky, who Trump had a meeting. He actually had dinner with in 2018. Here's a little. He, as you can tell, he's pushing. He's fear mongering. Also, in the beginning, he was like, "Oh, we got to stay indoors. We can't see our grandma and grandpa." And he's talking about Operation Warp Speed and how they need to create 1 billion vaccines. And he's acting like it's going to be a nonprofit. And they're not gonna make some cash on the back end. And we all, here's a little. The $1 billion bet: pharma giant and U.S. government team up an all-out coronavirus vaccine push. Johnson & Johnson's excuse me, my speech impediment just keep the tongue in the cage. So should have kept going to my speech impediment class when I was in elementary school, but I wanted to go outside and play in recess. So you'll hear me slip up every once in a while. But Johnson & Johnson's chief scientist describes nonprofit partnership to accelerate its candidate. And that's what he was talking about in that interview here. Here's another little video I have showcasing that they did sign that deal, that $1 billion
ramping
deal.
up its potential stock of future COVID-19 vaccines. The United States has signed a deal with pharmaceutical company Johnson & Johnson, $1 billion in return for 100 million vaccines. This adds to the $456 million already provided to the firm for research. It's not the first time the US invests in a COVID-19 jab. The White House is hedging its bets for a future immunization campaign. The country's top coronavirus advisor says at least one of them could be ready by the end of 2020.
You might likely get an indication that if it works and if it's safe by the end of this calendar year. I might add that I'm cautiously optimistic, though you can never guarantee things with a vaccine.
In total, the Trump administration has invested some $9.4
You
billion.
see how when it's like Operation Warp Speed and it's Trump's vaccine, it's all like they're questioning it, like Guthrie questioned him, like, oh, this thing's not tested and it's not proven. and Fauci here's like, it's not tested and it's not proven. And that's all for the Johnson & Johnson vaccine. And they do change course with the mRNA. And I'm going to showcase why in a
$1
second.
billion in COVID vaccine research, signing deals with at least 5 big pharma companies for the delivery of 700
So here's Trump in Operation Warp Speed giving Johnson & Johnson $1 billion to start creating these vaccines.
million doses. But for Dr. Fauci, it's not enough. He argues that it's already time to anticipate the next epidemic.
We're definitely going to do it, is to develop a universal coronavirus vaccine that has the specificity against all the coronaviruses. Shame on us if we're not prepared for the next coronavirus pandemic outbreak.
The World Health Organization, meanwhile, remains hopeful yet cautious.
There is no silver bullet at the moment.
Its chief warning that a long-term vaccine may never be found.
Oop. So there you have them kind of. You saw Trump giving Johnson & Johnson the money. They're saying they're not going to make profits. And here's a little
news just out from Johnson & Johnson. The company announcing that it has struck an agreement with the U.S. government to provide 100 million doses of its COVID-19 vaccine candidate. The government, meantime, has committed to more than $1 billion as part of that agreement. J&J says that it's going to be provided at a global not-for-profit basis for emergency pandemic use. The U.S. government, by the way, can also purchase an additional $200 million doses under a subsequent agreement. The company goes on to say that it is evaluating both 1 and 2 dose regimens, if that gives you a little bit of idea of what you'd be needing. This is 100 million doses. We've got maybe 310 million people in the United States. This would be used on an emergency basis for things. That 100 million, I don't know if that would be, you need to get 2 of those doses or if 1 would be enough for that, but the U.S. government could purchase another 200 million doses as part of it. Stock right now up by about $1.23. By the way, the company says that it's hoping that it can meet its goal to supply more than 1 billion doses globally through the course of 2021, provided that the vaccine is safe and effective. And Scott, it is still in those phase 1 and phase 2A, first in human clinical trials at this point.
All right. I like that one because they're saying it's not for profit, and literally 24 hours after they announce that they're making these vaccines, the stock price goes up $1.43. And then while she's talking, it jumps like another 32 cents. I wasn't 100% sure, but it's like, they're definitely going to be making profits off this. And now you're asking me, like, Andy, why is all this important? Why are you talking about Johnson & Johnson? Why do you got talking about Trump? And it's like, this is the main sticking point. Taking some Yiddish terms. This is the main sticking point with Trump backers, is that he pushed the vaccine. And it's like, they're always just like, he's on our side. Why? The one thing he was on the deep state with was this vaccine. And I would there's people arguing with me on Twitter before the show. They're like, can you back off Trump, man? He's having enough bad days. They're pushing Ron DeSanctimonious. The whole Democrat Party was after him after the midterm elections. And then the Republicans kind of turned on Trump as well. And they went on the attack. And it's like, okay, I'm not trying to pile on here, but I'm a researcher. And when I find information, I got to showcase it to my audience, no matter who it is, whether it's who I voted for, Trump twice. I voted for Obama twice too. I've done a lot of research showcasing his whereabouts as well and his connections to the deep state, and Biden as well. By the way, you heard that Alex Gorski, he mentioned moonshot. That's like a Obama, Biden, the cancer moonshot initiative is he's connected with them as well. So don't let that escape your mind. But I just have to, I'm not piling on Trump. I just have to showcase the research as it comes in, no matter who it is. If I'm going to be fair, if I'm going to be fair and honest. So we've been digging into like the Johnson & Johnson vaccine, Operation Warp Speed. Is it making profits? Is it not making profits? Donald Trump appointed Johnson & Johnson, the heir to Johnson & Johnson, Woody Johnson, the Jets owner, as the UK ambassador during his presidency. So there's that connection. But here's one as well. Like, why is this so important to Trump? So back in 2011, during the financial crisis, you know, Donald Trump, he's this giant real estate mogul. And supposedly, for the first time ever, Donald Trump starts investing in stocks. And as you can see here in this headline, Trump changes gears, now buying blue chip stocks. And if you read the article, faced with no returns on bank deposits and dicey property market, the controversial investor and TV host told CNBC that with the market in free fall Wednesday, he stepped out of his comfort zone and purchased a basket of blue chip stocks. I'm not a stock person, Trump said. I love real estate, but good real estate is very hard to get. So even with the market tumbling in a one-day loss that would exceed 500 points on the Dow, Trump bought a slew of large-cap stocks that form the core of Industrials Index. The stocks he purchased, now pay attention, Bank of America, Citigroup. I mean, he's probably making some money right now. Or did with those. Caterpillar, Intel, and the most important one I'm getting into, Johnson & Johnson, the big J&J. So back in 2011, Donald Trump purchased stocks of Johnson & Johnson, and this is before he decided to run as president of the United States. Now you can see your stocks Trump loves. It's just a little Invesco, Stocks Europe 600 Optimize, Intel Corp, Johnson & Johnson, Procter and Gamble. I love these companies. I've watched them for years and I've never owned a stock in them, he said. I went out yesterday and said, look, I'm not getting interest on CDs, so I went out and bought some stock. Trump made his investment in the stock market, even though he believes the world is a mess. While a loud and frequent critic of President Obama, Trump abandoned a potential presidential run, he said, because he wants to continue to host his NBC television show, Celebrity Apprentice. You're fired. CNBC and CNBC.com are both blah, blah, blah. Our president is lost. He's just lost. Trump said, I don't think he has a clue. Still, Trump said he thinks this could be a good time to buy some stocks, at least until banks start paying interest on deposits again. So there you have it, ladies and gentlemen. Why did Trump push the J&J vaccine so hard with Operation Warp Speed? Why did the government back their $1 billion nonprofit vaccine plan? Because Mr. Donald Trump had a vested interest in Johnson & Johnson. Now, I don't know if he's going to release his tax records in the next upcoming election. I'd say he should at this point. I want to see if he dropped the stock before he became president, because if Trump Corp owned some J&J stock and he pushed for this vaccine so hard so he can make some profits himself on the back end, then we definitely have some issues going on at hand. And that's not even saying his like Operation Warp Speed guy, Moncef Slaoui. He had a vested interest in GSK. I believe he was like their president or something at one point, and he owned like $10 million in stock in GlaxoSmithKline at the time of the COVID breakout. But yeah, I've been showcasing his Trump's connections to Woody Johnson, the Johnson & Johnson heir. You know, he appointed him the UK ambassador for the United States. He dined with the Johnson and Johnson CEO Alex Gorksky before the pandemic breakout happened in 2018. And yeah, it was his Operation Warp Speed was Trump's personal plan. You know, that was his baby at the end of his presidency. He pushed Johnson and Johnson, the J&J vax, and that is because dun dun dun, Donald Trump owns stock in Johnson and Johnson. And yeah, let's see where I'm. And the story continues. You know, even after Biden became president, the FDA, they were like, you saw them. I was kind of showcasing in those videos how the news, the Samantha Guthrie, she was kind of talking trash to Gorski about I'm sure I'm pronouncing his name wrong as well, about the J&J vaccine and how it wasn't tested yet. And Fauci did the same thing. That's because they have their own vested interests in Pfizer and Moderna. And this is why they don't push this connection on the news. Like, if you're going to destroy Trump in the news right now, like, I'm sure like Guthrie knows this connection by now. You know, it's like all this stuff is on her own website. All you do is Trump has connections to the pharmaceutical industry, but they can't really say that because they all have connections to the pharmaceutical industry as well, and they profited off of it themselves. So the mainstream media, they're not going to talk about this message when it comes to Trump because it would be super highly critical of the boys. So even during the Biden campaign here, we got they kind of put a pause on the J&J vaccine, and Trump, even though we had the Pfizer and the Moderna already, and those were being tested, we know. I'm not getting into the facts about transmissibility and all that stuff now, but Trump criticizes FDA on Johnson & Johnson vaccine pause. Former president rebuked the Biden administration, the FDA, and CDC on Tuesday for the decision to pause administration of the J&J coronavirus vaccine for concerns over potential blood clots. The Biden administration did a terrible disservice to people throughout the world by I was going to do an impression. Sorry. I need a drink of water. Throughout the world by allowing the FDA and CDC to call a pause on the use of the J&J COVID-19 vaccine, Trump said in a statement. The results of this vaccine have been extraordinary, but now its reputation will be permanently challenged. The people who have already taken the vaccine will be up in arms, and perhaps all of this was done for politics, or perhaps it's the FDA's love for Pfizer. Or perhaps they have their vested interest in Pfizer, and they know you, Mr. Trump, tried to capitalize while you were president to put some money in your pocket off this vaccine, and they're like, no, we're not going to allow that anymore. We're going to make all the money ourselves. I'm not saying they're good guys here. As you know, I didn't take the jab. You can check my arms. I'm jab free. I'm heroin free too. Sadly, not everyone can say that, but yeah, I'm jab free. I didn't take the vaccine. I think anyone who pushed the vaccine at this point had a vested interest in it, and they're all guilty, including Trump. Like, I used to say, like, why did he like push this vaccine? I used to bad intel. He was getting bad intel from Fauci and from Deborah Birx and all these people. And it's like, no, I finally figured it out. Trump owns stock in Johnson & Johnson. And you can see here, even after the Biden administration and the CDC and Fauci put a pause to it after it was causing blood clots, like, he still fought for it because he was making money on the back end. Now, just another weird connection between, we already have Woody Johnson being appointed ambassador by Trump to the UK. You know, the United Kingdom, they pushed the J&J vaccine as well. They made money through the United Kingdom, and there's a Woody Johnson. He was buddies with Boris Johnson. He even like compared the two at the time. I would show you, but just take my word for it. But that like it's like Woody Johnson, Donald Trump, and Boris Johnson. They don't have a relation. I tried to find a Boris Johnson, Woody Johnson relation connection of any type. I like 10th cousin. You know how Obama's like 10th cousins with Bush. I tried to find that, but I couldn't. But yeah, like them three, Woody, Boris, and Trump, were like, you know, they had frequent communication with each other. And the UK pushed the J&J vaccine as well, and they definitely made profits off the COVID-19 vaccine. So there's definitely some weird connections. But the last odd connection between Trump and the Johnson family I could find is that Woody Johnson actually had a sister. His sister name was Libet. And as you can see here, real estate dilettante, if I said that correctly, I think that's the first time I've ever seen that word or read that word. I'm sure I've heard it in a movie, but real estate dilettante, Libet Johnson lists Trump International condo. Libet Johnson, heiress to the Johnson & Johnson fortune, appears to be in the mood for tying up loose ends. And this was in 2013. So Trump bought Johnson & Johnson stock in 2011 while the Johnson & Johnson heiress, Libet, was living in his Trump International hotel. She owned a condo at the top floor. Libet Johnson, heiress to the Johnson & Johnson fortune, appears to be in the mood for tying up loose ends. 2 months ago, she reconciled with her ex-boyfriend, celebrity weight loss through pregnancy hormones guru Lionel Bassoon. We've heard a lot about these celebrity trainers with Kanye in the news lately, so keep your eye on these guys. Reaching a joint custody agreement over a 9-year-old child that they found. Wow, I didn't even read that part. Now comes a shedding of the real estate. Ms. Johnson has just listed her 30th floor condo at the Trump International Hotel in Towers. She's asking $4 million for the 2-bedroom, 2.5-bathroom spread, or exactly double what she paid for it back in 2004. We assume it was used either as staff apartment or distant visiting relations, given that it lacks park views and sits more than 20 floors below her old penthouse at 1 Central Park West, supposedly the largest in the building, which she sold, blah, blah, blah. So she sold real estate. But yeah, her even Woody's sister, the heiress to the J&J throne, Libet, she owned a $1 million property within the Trump International. So Trump has some major connections to the Johnson & Johnson family. So now you were like, you guys are asking me, you're like, hey, like they said Johnson & Johnson wasn't going to make profit off this COVID-19 ordeal with Operation Warp Speed. And here we have some third quarter earnings from a couple of years ago.
And thank you for acknowledging the quarter. It's really a great testament to the 135,000 associates at Johnson & Johnson to pursue through a tumultuous year with respect to the results that we've been able to deliver. Not just this.
So as you can see here on the graph, they were estimated to make $20.2 billion in revenue, and they actually made $21.1 billion in revenue. So they outpaced their estimate by $0.9 billion, which is a lot of cake.
This quarter, but really all year long. It really speaks to the strength of our portfolio. Pharmaceuticals, again, we believe is above market in terms of growth. Consumer has a very solid growth with a number of categories, much stronger than what they were this time last year. And then medical devices, where we saw almost a 35% decline in the second quarter, was about 3 to 4% of a decline this quarter. So a number of areas coming back, specifically in the elective procedure area.
Right, but of course we're heading into the colder months and case numbers are rising again. This of course means you might be able to enroll your trial faster if and when the pause is lifted. But for the rest of your business, how are you modeling the impact of COVID for the rest of the year?
Yeah, so we would expect, we saw in the third quarter, I would say a stabilization. So we were down about 3 to 4%.
So even with the pause, they were making some cake. You know, let them eat cake. Let them get the jab. They want it so bad. They have. I'm going to switch gears here in a moment, but there you have Donald Trump and his connection to the Johnson family, the Woody Johnson, Babette Johnson, the two heirs, the heir and the heiress to the Johnson & Johnson. Trump has personal relationships with them, and he also owns stock in the J and Johnson & Johnson. So he personally profited off Operation Warp Speed. And you know those little Q3 earnings right there? They outpaced themselves by $0.9 billion. That's money. That was money in Donald Trump's pocket. So I was just trying to answer you guys' question. You know, that was always Trump the hardest core Trump backers is always just like, why did he do the J&J vaccine, Donald? Why? Screaming to the top of their lungs. Not you. I'm telling you why. Because he's a money man. He's a businessman when it comes down to it. You know what I mean? He'll break your legs if you don't pay up. So Donald Trump was lining in his own pockets. And yeah, as you guys can see here, you guys are seeing in the chat, he has some splaining to do. And people are like, no. And it's like, I kind of felt like that too. I was like, not my man Trump. But yeah, I mean, if you're a businessman and you're sitting there and you're seeing all these politicians, you see Nancy Pelosi with insider trading, you see all these, you saw all the other, there was like 20-something politicians that sold stocks right before COVID-19 hit. There's a bunch of insider trading going on within Washington, D.C. and our corporations. And Donald Trump's kind of sitting there on the outside. He's like, if I'm going to become a politician, I'm going to take part in this as well. You know? So yeah, he makes sure, like before he ran for president, he makes sure he started investing in the stock market. He literally never invested in the stock market ever in his life. And all of a sudden he's like, I'm running for president and I'm going to start investing in the stock market. And lo and behold, he has a big payoff in the back end. Now there actually was, pretty sure, pretty sure he had investments with Gilead too, which did a lot of. Maybe I had some. I swear I had an article somewhere. Donald Trump and Gilead. Maybe I forgot to save it in my research files. But yeah, Donald Trump supposedly has some investments with Gilead Sciences as well, which is Donald Rumsfeld's baby. So Donald, here's your Donald Trump, Donald Rumsfeld connection. So I am going to switch gears here a little bit. I've done enough bashing of Donald Trump. You know, I love the guy. You're fired. He says, you're fired, Andy. You're not my favorite citizen journalist anymore. That's what Trump says. You're fired. How dare you? I get pring. Donald calling me now. He's gonna shut down my internet. I'm banned from Florida permanently. But I got a connection within Florida named Ron DeSanctimonious. So I think I shall be covered. Sorry, give me a second here. I'm deleting some tabs. If you watch my last show, I had like 9,000 tabs open and I lost myself. I think this one's going a little bit better. A little bit better. I might say. So I'm switching gears here. There's been a lot of talk in the news lately about people investing in the Democratic Party. You know, I'm done shitting on Trump. I'm going back to my shitting on the Democrats' ways. Apparently, all politicians. I had my favorite. You guys want to see my favorite tweet of all time? Let's see if I can find my favorite tweet of all time real quick. Showcase. Here we go. Real quick. I just want to showcase you my favorite tweet that I ever came up with. This is even after Trump. After learning about Trump, most politicians are douchebags that fluff their golf ball. Still makes me laugh because, you know, people who fluff their golf balls are considered cheaters. You know, even when they're out in the golf course, they got their Secret Service hiding in the trees, throwing the ball out into the fairway. You know, if your ball's in a divot, you fluff so you can get a cleaner shot. So if you can't trust a politician on the golf course, when it comes to sports, I would never, actually, if someone cheated in sports, I would never vote for them in real life. So if you're out there fluffing a golf ball on the golf course and you're a politician, just let me know because I'm never voting for you. I know Trump has a good swing, but he looks like a fluffer. I'm not talking about the porn fluffers too. I'm not getting into that. You guys can look what a fluffer is when it comes to porn yourself. I'm talking about on the golf course. So getting back to it here. There's been a lot of talk of people investing in the Democrats lately. You know, FTX, Sam Bankman-Fried. I'll be getting to them. I got a little bit of something else to showcase you on them guys. But here's American billionaires spent a record $880 million on the U.S. midterm elections. You talk about $0.9 billion extra profit that J&J just made. No, that's no link to this. I don't think so. Or at least I hope not so. But American billionaires spent a record $880 million on the U.S. midterm elections. The top donor so far is George Soros, who has contributed over $128 million to the midterms. The second largest billionaire donor was Richard Hewlin, the Wisconsin shipping supply magnate, and his wife Elizabeth, who had contributed $67 million to Republican candidates. Hedge fund billionaire Ken Griffin, who is becoming increasingly active in GOP politics, was the third largest billionaire funder. And you can see here in the little video, number one billionaire donor was George Soros. He funds his Act Blue campaigns. You know, everyone knows Act Blue and how he pushes his ideologies through Democratic candidates by funding them pretty much. That's not what I'm getting into here. I'm going to be getting into FTX, but George Soros definitely was a big campaign contributor next to this man. Embattled cryptocurrency founders spent $40 million on midterms by Julie Bikovitz. So Sam Bankman-Fried, founder and chief executive officer of cryptocurrency exchange FTX, in an August 17 interview. Even before polls closed, one of the year's biggest Democratic donors had a very bad Tuesday. Sam Bankman-Fried's cryptocurrency exchange FTX, valued at $32 billion in January, suffered a sudden liquidity crunch and was taken over by its rival Binance. So you guys know, I'm not going to dig too deep in that part because everyone's digging into this right now. I'm just highlighting this part of the story that supposedly that Sam Bankman has through this, the Democratic Party was sending our tax dollars our hard-earned tax dollars to Ukraine to support them in the war with Russia. And Ukraine, they were making investments in FTX, boosting their portfolio, and in turn, they were taking their profits and investing that in Democratic campaigns. They were contributing money to Democratic candidates. I think Beto O'Rourke got $1 million. A bunch of people all over the country got a lot of money from Sam Bankman. So just saying that. Now, Sam Bankman has some parents here that they're connected to Yale, which everyone knows is Skull and Crossbones, and connections to George Bush and the deep state. So just bear with me here for a moment. This is a little difficult for me to get through. But Sam Bankman's parents got together with philosopher Thomas Nagel. They got together in 2002 in New York. His dad is Jonathan Bankman, and his mom is, I believe, Rebecca Fried. It's somewhere. I got it in the next article. But they got together with philosopher Thomas Nagel, and they wrote this book called The Myth of Ownership, Taxes and Justice. Now, his parents, they both went to Stanford, and they both studied tax law at Stanford. And that's what they were doing in this meeting in New York in 2002. They were going over tax laws with Thomas Nagel, and they're breaking some things down here. So I'm going to just read their profiles real quick before I get into the myths of ownership. I know that's interesting, the myths of ownership. But just bear with me here. So here we have, I'm just going to read you their profiles real quick. We got Joseph Bankman. I hope you can see this on the screen. That is Sam Bankman's father, Stanford Law School. The Ralph M. Parsons Professor of Law and Business at Stanford Law School. Joseph Bankman will join the visiting faculty this year at Stanford Law School. This was like a publication by NYU, by the way. That's for the writing of the book, The Myth of Ownership. At Stanford Law School, he was also named the Helen L. Crocker Faculty Scholar in 1993. Professor Bankman was assistant professor of law at the University of Southern California Law School from 1984 to 1988, and an associate at the law firm of Tuttle and Taylor in Los Angeles from 80 to 84. Bankman's professional and scholarly interests include income taxation and business associations. His most recent publications include The Venture Capital Investment Bust. Did agency costs play a role? Was it something lawyers helped structure? In the Chicago Kent Law Review. And Federal Income Taxation with Klein and D. Shaviro, blah, blah, blah. His current research and forthcoming publications include the role of accountants in tax evasion and insider trading and stock substitutes. So that's just giving you like an idea where Sam Bankman is getting like his education from, like tax evasion. His parents are like experts in tax law, tax evasion, how they're using accountants to avoid paying some taxes, insider trading. Just give you an idea. Bankman receives his JD from Yale Law School in 1980 and his AB from the University of Cal Berkeley in 77. He is delighted to return to the law school. I'm thrilled to be back at NYU Law, which has become such a center of intellectual life, Bankman says. And this is, his Sam Bankman's parents, I'm guessing, met at Stanford. They both went to Stanford. They either met at Stanford, I'm sure they were in the same classes, or they met at this little educational camp right here that they're going to put on. So they're not married yet. Her name's Barbara Fried in here, as you can tell. I'm going to read her profile real quick. Barbara Fried, Stanford Law School. Oh, my back is hurting. Just started doing yoga. Done 4 yoga sessions, by the way. Woo! It's good for the body. Good for the soul. Good for the mind. It's good for everything. I really highly suggest yoga. Just letting you know, and eating healthy. Barbara Fried, Stanford Law School, Sam Bankman's mother. Sam Bankman-Fried, FTXs. This is how I like. That's what goes on in my mind most of the time, ladies and gentlemen. So, just to give you an idea, Barbara Fried, presently the professor of law and Dean F. Johnson Faculty Scholar at Stanford Law School, is pleased to return to NYU Law. NYU Law has proved a hard place to stay away from, she says. I'm delighted to be returning for a second tour of duty in what is a particularly exciting time for the law school. Before joining the faculty of Stanford Law School in 1987, she was an associate at Paul Weiss, Rifkin, Wharton, and Garrison in NYC for 3 years. From 83 to 84, she served as a law clerk for the Honorable J. Edward Lombard on the U.S. Court of Appeals for the Second Circuit. She graduated, so she has connections to the U.S. Court of Appeals. She graduated from Harvard Law School, and also, so she has a lot of connections within the law community, to say the least, and also received her BA and MA from Harvard in 97 and 80. At Stanford, Fried is a two-time winner of the John Bingham Hurlbut Award for Excellence in Teaching, which is voted on by the graduating class. So her areas of teaching include contracts, federal income taxation, tax policy, distributive justice, property, and property theory. Now, this is huge. We want property theory. That's where she comes into play in the mythology of ownership. Her major publications include Why Proportionate Taxation and Tax Justice Reconsidered, the Moral and Ethical Basis of Taxation, and The Progressive Assault on Laissez-Faire, Robert Hale and the First Law and Economics Movement. Her current research projects include If You Don't Like It, Leave It, The Construction of Exit Options in Social Contractarian Arguments. Apparently, I can't say it. My speech impediment is at full play in contractarian. Sorry, I make fun of myself on this show, ladies and gentlemen. I hope this is someone's first time watching. And Left Libertarianism and Its Critics, a review essay. So that's letting you know right there. If you don't like it, leave it. She's just kind of letting you guys know. If you're on the right now, if you don't like the United States, leave it. This is the society. This is the structure we built for you guys to live it. So if you don't like it, get out of here. And Left Libertarianism and Its Critics, a review essay. So she defends like far left-leaning libertarianism, pretty much like the ideologies you're seeing BLM, LGBTQ plus, like George Soros types ideologies. Sam Bankman's mom believes in those heavily as well. And just to give you an idea, I'm losing track. People are falling out here at a fast rate when it comes to the Bankmans. So the myth of ownership, taxes, and justice. So they got together. I just showcased you like the reason they had those profiles of Sam Bankman-Fried's parents, was because they got together in the early 2000s to write this book with Thomas Nagel. The Myth of Ownership, Taxes, and Justice. So like the basic premise, I'm not going to read this book. I'm just kind of putting it on the screen right now. You're just going to have to take my word for it. Here, I'll showcase it in the chat if you guys ever want to read this yourself. So the basis of this book, The Myth of Ownership, Taxes, and Justice, is basically how like you're when you go to work, you know, and you put your time in, you put your blood, your sweat, and your tears, and you get that paycheck at the end of the week, and it's like, and it says $500 or $1,000 on it. Whatever you make, $10 million, if you're Donald Trump owning stock in J&J vaccines. That's called a callback, ladies and gentlemen. So they're talking about you get your paycheck at the end of the week. And what's everyone do when they get their first paycheck? They go like, what they get like pissed. They like call the cops. It's like, I had 911 dialed. My parents were like, why are you calling the cops? I was like, they took half my money. So everyone goes like, what? You have to pay taxes. I have to pay. I go to work all week and I have to give the government half my money. And your parents go, oh, that's so you can have roads and you get textbooks when you go to school and the lights are on and you got water and they pay for Justice Department and cops and all the parts of like that are building blocks of society. That's what taxes are for. Now, their theory in this is that like when you get your check, like in your head, that's like your money. Like I got my money and then I donate it to society, so I can drive a car on a nice road and I can get my education or what have you. And I can get pulled over for speeding tickets by the chicken shit cops sitting behind the sign on the corner. That's you're thinking you're donating that money. You're all pissed off. Now their theory, Sam Bankman-Fried's parents, Jonathan Bankman and Rebecca Fried, their theory in this book, The Myth of Ownership, Taxes, and Justice, they like Thomas Nagel and Liam Murphy, they give, here I'll show you, they give credit, page 3 to Rebecca Fried here. Barbara Fried, sorry, I keep saying Rebecca. We cannot begin to thank sufficiently, blah, 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 New York's tax faculty. Barbara Fried. So she and her husband helped write this book. So their theory is that money's not actually yours. That's the society, like that tax money that comes out of your check, like you never, like that's never yours. It should never cross your mind as yours. It's all that was society's. That was the government's from the get-go. When you sign that contract to live on your piece of property, and you go to school and you drive a car, when you sign your contract, that you're like that money is the government's. And the government's job is to disperse that money. This is the role as government, to disperse that money as they seem fit. If there's a pandemic, they give billions of dollars to J&J for their own even though they own stock in Johnson & Johnson for Operation Warp Speed. Whatever it is. So they're saying that's my money. Now, I know it's not exactly communism, but doesn't that sound like some communistic principles? Like, hey, we're going to take your tax dollars and distribute it into society from what we think is best. Doesn't that sound like, hey, we're going to take your tax dollars and we're going to send it to Ukraine because there's a Ukraine-Russian conflict going on overseas, and we can't let Russia have all this power. And we believe in sovereign countries and in democracy. So we need Ukraine to be solid against Russia. So we're going to take American tax dollars, send it to Ukraine, okay? And then we're going to take that money, invest it in cryptocurrency. Then we're going to take the profits from that cryptocurrency and reinvest it into Democratic candidates within the United States who are going to push societal interests such as BLM, LGBTQ, pandemic preparedness, all these liberal policies you're seeing in the United States the past couple of years, this is the same thing Sam Bankman-Fried's parents believe in, Jonathan Bankman and Barbara Fried. I got it right. It wasn't Rebecca Fried. It was Barbara Fried. So your money, the myth of ownership, that money that comes out of your paycheck, that was never yours. It's a myth. It was never your money. It's government's role to disperse that money in ways they seem fit to better society. And doesn't that seem like what the Biden administration, what the Democrats, I guess Republicans did too, when they sent money to Ukraine and back-channeled it to themselves to continue pushing their policies in the United States. So they're pushing the policies in Ukraine and at the same time pushing them in the United States, all for the betterment of society. And that is the basis of what the myth of ownership is. And I hope that makes sense. And just give you a little bit of another connection. So Thomas Nagel, you know, he's a philosopher. He's still alive, New York University philosopher. What is it like to be a bat is his famous writing. I wouldn't call him like a complete communist, but he definitely, he doesn't believe, he believes in like this, the myth of ownership, that money is not yours. You know, isn't that like a form of socialism, form of communism? They're taking your tax money and they're dispersing it how they seem fit. That's a form of communism. Plus, he doesn't believe in a higher power at all. So that is also not believing in religion is a communist principle as well. So Thomas Nagel, he writes articles regularly for Project Syndicate. Here's one: Justice Reconsidered. Pretty much, it sums up on the mythology of ownership, taxes, and justice. It sums that up in this short little article for Project Syndicate. He's a regular author for them. And just for you guys that don't know, Project Syndicate is another one of George Soros's babies. So there's your Sam Bankman-Fried, Thomas Nagel, George Soros connection. George Soros, this is where you can find all his publications, all his writings, his Project Syndicate, the World's Opinions page. That's George Soros's opinions page, and Thomas Nagel has done some writings for Mr. Soros in Project Syndicate. And Thomas Nagel worked with Sam Bankman-Fried's parents to write the myth of ownership. So, yeah, there's your, and that may be why you see some of these policies, that BLM, the LGBTQ. That's maybe why you see some of George Soros's policies being pushed by these people as well. So that is my show for today. I hope you enjoyed learning that President Donald Trump had a vested interest in Johnson & Johnson. He actually owned stock, unfortunately, and he was friends with Woody Johnson, the heir to J&J. He was also the heiress to J&J, Labette Johnson. Lived in his Trump International hotel. Actually, she may have not. They said it was like a servant's quarters because it didn't have a view of the park or something like that. But either way, she had some property in the Trump International. Trump appointed Woody Johnson as the UK ambassador. So Johnson & Johnson both made profit off the UK's vaccine policy and the United States vaccine policy. And that's because Woody Johnson was friends with Trump and Boris Johnson. And Trump yeah, him owning the stock in J&J and lining his own pockets is bad enough. And so just, yeah, every politician out there, it's not just Nancy Pelosi. It's not just the guys you hate, people, you know, they're all doing bad stuff. And I'm out to get you. You better delete your stuff off the internet because Andy's out there compound searching. All right, people, make sure. Oh, by the way, make sure you go to my backup channel. I may get taken down right after this. So make sure you go to my backup channel, Live with Andy DeBala backup channel, and subscribe there as well. I do post little shorts. I'm posting these little informational shorts. Sometimes I'll just put the research video out there and kind of let it speak for itself. But yeah, I got Ralph Barrick and the synthetic creation and genetic engineering behind SARS, Klaus Schwab, the World Economic Forum, Capitol Insurrection on January 6th, the World Health Organization. I know we did a lot of work with George Webb and Neighborhood News, and I have a lot of research that I have saved and backed up, a lot of videos. So I will be posting this stuff on my backup channel, and I'll be talking about it as well as we go here. So I do have 2 strikes on this channel, Live with Andy, and I may get taken down at any point. So either way, go and give it a subscribe, because I don't got much longer here, to be honest with you. But yeah, we got your Trump J&J profit connections, and we got Sam Bankman-Fried's parents' connection to George Soros, and their belief that, and their socialist belief that the tax money that the government receives is 100% theirs, and it was never yours in the first place. Now, with the rising tax rates, rising inflation, this country was founded on taxation without representation, and we threw tea in a river over it and started a war over it. And if we're letting people run our country that are just going to keep upping the ante and keep stealing money from our paychecks, and they actually think that that's money's rightfully theirs, then I have a problem with that, and I believe you should too. So I'm Andy DeBala. This was Live with Andy. Follow me on Twitter. Follow me, my backup channel. And here, let me say hi to some people, I guess, before I go. Allie Mae, great show, Andy. Wendy Sloan was there first. Scott Londy, what's up, Wendy? Bob Kenter in the chat again. What's up, Bob? Michelle Maslin, hello. Audrey Lynn Colton Smith, thanks, Andy. Nice beard. Thank you very much. I trimmed it up. You can see my my little scar when I got my thyroid removed there. Not too bad. I've seen some people with some giant neck scars, so that little one's not too bad. But I did a nice little trim job before the show today, guys. I tried to look pretty for you, I hope it's working. I hope it's working. Is there proof that DJT didn't divest his portfolio by 2015? That is a great point, Ratebach, Texas. This is the reason why I think he's like covering up his tax records. And there's no way he's going to show them at this point. And I know they just like put an extra blockade on his tax portfolio and releasing his taxes. So I don't know if we'll ever come to the truth, but yeah, Donald Trump, if you are out there, give us some hope and just be like, just show us that you sold your stocks in J&J before your presidency. Because if you did that, then I'll delete this show. Or at least, yeah, I may not delete it, but I'll at least like come out and be like, I was wrong. He did sell it. But if you're out there, Donald, don't fire me yet. Just give me a correction and say you did sell your stock. But I don't think he did. He had his connections with Woody Johnson, made him the UK ambassador. Woody Johnson's sister was living was living in his Trump International Hotel, you know. So I don't think he did, but we'll see. Release the crack Andy. Thanks, Andy. Linda Sutton. Norman Smith. Caveman Science Forever. Woohoo. You look older with the beard. Yes, I do. You know, I can't look like a young lad all my life. Why did DJT hire ex-Pfizer insiders to watchdog the rollout? I believe, like, when you talk about him, there's like a theory that he was misled by Birx and Fauci and some of these people, and that's may have been where he was misled into going to the Pfizer to go in the Moderna route. I'm thinking, Kim Odom. I may be wrong, but I think that's everyone's like, he was misled with the vaccine in general. It's like, I think he was misled with the Johnson & Johnson vaccine, because I'm assuming they all knew that Trump had backdoor deals with J&J, and he owned stock in their company. I'm assuming Fauci knew that. I'm assuming Pfizer knew that. So they're like, we're trying to push our own vaccine. Let's get our guys in there on Trump's team and kind of lead him this way. But even so, when Biden was in, they put the halt to J&J, and Trump was still fighting. Like, why? Go and put, like, J&J needs to be out there. It's a disgrace, and you're killing American people. You're killing us all. And it's like, yeah, you're saying that because you own stock in the company, I'm thinking. Whilst defend it so, like, heartily. And here you got Norman Smith, vaccines kill. They're pushing the new trifecta, the RSV, the COVID, and the flu vaccine. Make sure you go out, you just eat healthy, you get your exercise. And if you see people that are sick, just stay away. It's that simple. But ladies and gentlemen, it's time. Speaking of eating healthy, it's time for this gentleman to go eat dinner. So everyone have a good day. I will be back Wednesday at 5 p.m. or I guess that's 5 p.m. Central. But I'll be back Wednesday at 6 p.m. Eastern time. Make sure you guys come back and tune in. Give this video a like and share, and give me some support. Love you guys. See you later.